Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm here with Shawn Busse, who is CEO and founder of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Welcome back, Shawn.
Hey, good morning, Lauren. Nice to talk to you.
Great to have you here. We haven't spoken in a little while. What's going on? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things in the news these days. I mean, we don't need to get into all the rigmarole and details, but I think, a lot of businesses are really being disrupted and upended. Small businesses, especially. It's a pretty challenging time.
Is that based on what you're reading, or are you actually seeing that in Oregon with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. I'm hearing clients that, had, let's say they had business in the bag and then suddenly the contract evaporated. Or I'm hearing, what are we going to do when our materials costs go up by X percent? So that changes buying behavior considerably. So getting new customers can be really difficult in that environment. So all kind of any and all the above, uncertainty is a difficult environment to do business in.
How bad would you say it is? Are you seeing people panicking, or is it just people are wary at this point?
I don't know if panic is the right word. I would say I'm hearing a lot of anxiety. I would say anxious. I think there's growing anxiety within the business community, because I know a lot of the news is federally focused and so forth, say, we're shutting down USAID or we're going to shut down the Department of Education. A lot of folks forget that there are tendrils of the U.S. government all throughout even our small communities, whether that's in the form of grants or small businesses that deliver on services to the various entities of the U.S. government. And so there's just such a ripple effect with what's going on right now.
Sure, combining that with the tariffs and with the labor impact of the immigration issues, that's a lot going on. Are you having conversations with clients? What do you have any guidance for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm lucky that I've been in business for a little while and I've been through a lot of different types of events. You think about like the early days of the pandemic, which isn't it crazy? We're coming up on 5 years?
5 years.
It's just crazy to think about that, but it feels like yesterday.
That year seemed like 5 years, but it's it's hard to believe it was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So I think that event was very unique in that it was global and it was sharp. It was like falling off a cliff. And then I think about, say, like 2008, 2009, which was kind of a rolling event. And what I mean by that is, Lehman Brothers collapsed and, housing values plummeted and banks were failing, et cetera, et cetera. But it sort of happened in at least economically, in a kind of a rolling manner, meaning in Portland, where I got all the way to the end of 2009. And I was like telling myself, that's interesting. It doesn't seem to be affecting me. I was, a lot younger then, but I really had sort of convinced myself that somehow the client mix and what we were doing had been, spared. And that was totally not true. It just was delayed. And, kind of our come to Jesus moment was in December and January of late 2009 and early 2010. It feels more like that there's this kind of rolling situation that in the beginning might only affect, say, federal employees, are probably really having a tough time, but then it'll affect the contractors who work with those federal agencies. And then that's going to affect businesses who serve those companies. And so I think that's why there's anxiety, is because people are smart. They can do the math on this stuff and see the connections.
Shawn, I think you've told us in the past a little bit about your history with Kinesis and how difficult it was during the Great Recession. And I think what you described was that a lot of your clients, you were working with a marketer within the client, and the marketer got fired,
right.
Which obviously presents some problems for you. How did you find your way out of that?
Yeah, I mean, I've told the story so many times. I apologize to listeners that have heard it before, but I was literally like we serve the marketer within a company, and we do largely brand and design services. Our customer was the marketer; it wasn't the business owner, and that's an okay business model. It's peak and valley. It's hard to predict. We got a lot of our business off of SEO, a ton of business off SEO. And it was an okay business model. But when the recession really started to take hold, all those marketers, they lost their jobs. And if they didn't lose their job, they lost their budgets. So, here we were, a company that relied on marketers to give us work, and they were all out of a job or out of money or both. So it was tough.
So what did you do?
I was so lucky. At the time, I had been signed up for an accelerator program for the Entrepreneurs Organization. And, I was around a lot of really smart people, a lot of people who are suffering and struggling like me. And I read a really important book called Blue Ocean Strategy, which is, kind of long in the tooth now, but it's still a really important idea. And that idea is like, how do you turn non-customers into buyers? And I read that book and I started thinking about my customer, who was the marketer. And then I started thinking about their customer, which was the business owner, and how there was such a disconnect between what the marketer was doing and what the business owner probably wanted, which I wasn't quite sure what they wanted. So I started talking to them. I just started talking to business owners like, hey, do you have a marketer? Why did you hire them? Are you happy with what they do? Or you fired your marketer? Why did you fire them? I just started asking people these questions about marketing within a small business ecosystem. And it was the unlocking of the big insight for me, which was marketing was really broken for small businesses. It just didn't work, that the people were really frustrated by it. And yeah.
It didn't work, meaning the idea of having an internal marketing person who worked with an outside shop didn't work?
Yeah, I mean, that version was problematic in lots of ways, but more on a high level, you could ask an internal marketer, hey, what's the vision that the owner has for his or her company? And they generally wouldn't be able to answer that question. Or you would ask the owner, hey, what's the marketer doing to put revenue into your business? And they couldn't answer that question either. And it was really interesting. And that's why they got fired. The owner really couldn't connect the dots between what they wanted to achieve and the marketer. And the marketer couldn't demonstrate how they were helping, keep the business moving in the right direction. So that broken system, I started to ask my question, well, why is that so broken? And those were some of my big epiphanies, that by talking to owners and talking to marketers and sort of understanding this ecosystem, and I started looking at it and go, oh, okay. Generally, a marketer in a small business is hired at a very junior position. They're very young. They're usually right out of college. Many of them don't have any formal marketing experience at all. They were hired as an administrative assistant and liked to do marketing. There's all kinds of stories that I would hear about of wow, that's really interesting. That system doesn't really work very well. And then similarly, because I had been doing, marketing for a very long time or been working in that ecosystem, I had just seen it get so complex. I'd seen it go from print, TV, radio, that was it, to all these different digital channels and social and so forth. So exponentially complicated industry, inexperienced junior employees, owners who didn't really understand the dynamics very well. It's kind of I don't blame anybody. It's just a system that just wasn't built for success.
So what did you do with all of these epiphanies?
So I built a new product. So I essentially said, hey, let's leave behind this idea of we do whatever you need to be done, Mr. or Mrs. Marketer, and let's serve the owner of the business. So in the Blue Ocean strategy idea, I turned the owner into the customer, not the marketer. And what we sold was a really kind of a marketing department, because part of the problem with the solo marketer is you're asking them to do too many things. You're either asking them to be a senior level experienced person, in which case they're going to want to hire a bunch of people to do the work they don't want to do, or you're hiring a junior person who will do a lot of activities gladly, but probably not very well because they don't have mentorship, they don't have experience, they don't know what to do. They might have gone to college, but they were probably trained on consumer marketing instead of B2B. So there's all these reasons why a solo person is a really tough solution to marketing. You really need a team of people. And so I provided that team of people. So I would have certain people who were very senior level and strategically oriented. And then I had people who were execution minded, and I would have people who were creatively minded. And I would offer that for about the price of hiring one person. And it was just a super powerful value proposition. And because the market was ready for it, I just sold clients like crazy. It was a great time.
So is there a lesson in how you figured out a new business model for businesses that today are struggling?
Yeah, I think the advice I would give today to owners, especially if their model is really struggling, if they're having a hard time with the model, like you're finding that buyers are reluctant to buy, or they're worried about the price, et cetera, is to really do like I did and start to ask questions about the buyers. And you can even interview them, interview them to understand, well, what are their real frustrations? I didn't understand, under the earlier business of Kinesis, I didn't understand that the business owner was frustrated with marketing's kind of lack of accountability and lack of connection to their vision. I didn't know that, right? Because I thought my customer was the marketer. And the marketer never would have told me those things. So I dove deeper in and I started asking owners what they were struggling with. And so I think going to either your customer or who you want to become your customer, which is what I did. I went to the person that I wanted to become my customer, and I started asking them open-ended questions, questions about, if they could wave the magic wand, what would they make things like? So I started to learn from them what their pains were and what their struggles were.
Do you see businesses doing that?
It's really hard to do. Gravity is a thing in business. And what I mean by gravity, the operating of the business, you're
inertia.
You're told to inertia. Yeah, it's inertia. That's a better word, So we are told, figure something out and optimize it. And that mindset is great, but it is a little bit of an industrial revolution mindset. Whereas I believe that we are changing so fast now because of technology and communication and globalization. Companies need to put a lot more energy into what I would say is sort of like the innovation and creativity realm, so that they're kind of constantly thinking about building new things and running small experiments to see what's possible. That's, for me, that was really, it was life-changing, when I did that in 2010. And I think more businesses could benefit from that. And I think we're in that moment. I think we're in another moment like that, where change it is dramatic and it is rolling through our economy. And so I would say, don't wait, don't wait until, all your customers are gone, like I did. I was really in a bad spot, but, do it when you, still have existing customers, and build something new.
It sounds like it's not just about being creative and innovative. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, but
yeah,
it's deeper than that in a sense, I think, if I'm hearing you right, because it's understanding what your customers are really thinking, the way you had to figure out. If you're not keeping in touch with them, if you don't really know what their pain points are, and they move in another direction, you're not going to go with them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think. as your business grows, you get further and further from your customer. And I think really good businesses don't let that happen. I think really good businesses stay very, very tight with their customer so they know when the tides are shifting. I think about my friend Ken. He owns a company called GroveMade. I think we interviewed him many, many moons ago, maybe during the pandemic, Lauren. I don't know if you remember that, but Ken used to make bamboo cell phone cases. Like that was his thing. He got known for it. He was good at it. They made money at it. And then what do you know? Like China starts to make these things too. And then pretty soon, like he's just being copied right and left. And he's a really good example of a guy who's sort of always thinking about what's the next thing before the gas runs out of the tank of the old thing. And so he started to go after like desk accessories. Like the way he put it was, we rode the wave of the rise of the standing desk. Like the innovation of the standing desk, which he had nothing to do with, created a new set of problems. Mainly, like, for example, the monitor was too low on the table, so you needed like a shelf to elevate it. Like he created a category called the monitor shelf. Like he did that. Like he built that. And now today, he's been copied a million times over. There's websites I'll go to that look just like GroveMade. So he's now envisioning GroveMade 3.0, which I can't really tell you what that's about, but it's pretty cool, very exciting. But basically, he realized that the end was coming for the phone case, but there was something new that his customers were thinking about, which is like these standing desks and the problems associated with them. There's actually problems with standing desks. They don't have good storage. They don't elevate the monitor. They look commoditized. There's just all these problems. And so he solved those problems through product innovation. He's a really, really cool guy, really cool story.
Interesting. I do remember Ken. He also rode the wave of remote work, which obviously is.
Oh yeah,
it's not what it once was. Yeah. Although I don't think it's ever going away completely. Obviously,
right.
So, any advice for someone who wants to reach out to their customers? Do you do it regularly? Questions to ask? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple guidelines. I mean, the team has a whole methodology they use, and I'm a little distant from it at this point, but. I would say a couple key ideas. One is the biggest problem with interviews is bias. You have the bias of the interviewer and then the bias of the interviewee. So I like to have somebody conducting the interview that kind of doesn't have skin in the game. That's outside of the day-to-day interaction with the client, that maybe isn't even attached to the revenue from the client. So, you could hire somebody from the outside to do this kind of work. I think you get really great results when you do that sort of thing. And it doesn't have to be us. I don't want to seem self-serving. I mean, you can hire all kinds of different people to do that kind of stuff. I would say that you want to kind of think like a journalist in terms of not coming to the table with a predetermined idea of what answers you're going to get. So you want to ask really open-ended questions. One of my favorite ones is to ask like the magic wand question. Hey, imagine you waved a magic wand and you could change everything. What would that look like? Paint me a picture. I like to ask expansive questions like that. Those are a couple of good guidelines. I would also say, and I will get some pushback from some groups on this. I don't like surveys. I full stop. I think that they have all this inherent bias built into how you shape them and also who is willing to answer a survey. This is why I think you should have conversations. I think fewer conversations is worth way more than giant surveys with lots of supposed data. And so I like to pick an audience that you want to replicate. So rather than talking to all of your customers, I encourage people to talk to, really the right fit customers, those that align with your values, those that, financially are profitable for you and are a delight to work with because you are wanting to recreate those experiences, those client experiences and those customers. I think you can talk to unhappy customers. I always get this question like, well, do you want to talk to the people who aren't happy? It's like, well, Yeah, we can do that, but I would bias, 80-20 maybe towards the satisfied customers, because your goal here is to do and to create things that attract and connect to a right fit customer. The goal isn't to fix your operations. That talking to unhappy customers actually can be a good thing for a different reason. I think for fixing operations or finding problems, that's valid too. I don't want to say that's not valid, but when we're talking innovation, creation, and new, I think talking to either your dream customer or even like I did back in 2010, who you think could be your next customer. I have a client where they were really beholden to a distributor model, which meant that the end customer, they never got to talk to them. So they were talking to the distributor. And there's a real problem in those distributor models in that distributors don't do a good job of communicating to the manufacturer what it is the end customer values. So one of the visions that we cast for them was, how do we get to that end customer? How do we actually start to sell direct to that customer? So talking to your dream customer as opposed to the default customer is another important idea that I like to talk about.
Interesting. I think I hear you saying that there's value in both the business owner keeping in contact with his or her own customers, and there's also value in bringing in an outsider to have those conversations in an unbiased way. Maybe the answer is to do a little of both.
I think it's totally undervalued, but all of that is undervalued in terms of its importance because it doesn't show up on a P&L, right? It's not like some people will use things like, I got one of these the other day. What's that called? Where they ask you, like, how likely are you to recommend this company to a friend, 1 through 10? Oh gosh, you know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about.
Anything below a 7 is like red alarms go off kind of things. And those are okay. But I just, when I see an owner who's really committed to staying in touch with their customer, like,
Net Promoter Survey is, I think, what you're looking for.
Yes, Net Promoter Score. Thank you. Yeah, I just think somebody who talks to clients on a regular basis wins out, because that's going to often be a source of inspiration, creativity, and new creation. And I think we are in a moment where the disruption is so extreme that the path forward might be to do something new. It might be to create something that, maybe isn't out there already, or that has been opened up in the market. Like I couldn't have gone to the market with my offering in 2007 because the market was pretty happy. Maybe 2006. The market was happy. It was kind of fat and happy and lazy. And that's why all these marketers had jobs. And so it took the disruption. It took the kind of like violent shaking of the economy for owners to be like, maybe I shouldn't hire this in-house person. And that created opportunity for me, which interestingly enough, over time became more and more difficult because as the economy stayed good for like almost a decade, it just stayed good forever. People reverted to those behaviors. And so my value proposition started to diminish, which is why I started shifting more towards strategy, business coaching, business consulting, as opposed to just pure marketing. Because what I saw the writing on the wall, I was like, you know what? People are getting lazy again. They're hiring their, single in-house marketer. They're not really accountable. That person doesn't know what their vision is. There are good marketers out there. Look, I don't want to throw them all under the bus, but basically the market was regressing to the mean. And I was like, oh, we gotta create something new. And I think we're in this moment again. I think for all businesses, we're in this moment. And that's why I think creation and creativity is really important.
I love the idea of finding that opportunity in a very difficult moment, and hopefully a lot of people will be able to do that in this particular moment. Good stopping point. Shawn Busse is CEO of Kinesis, which is based in Portland, Oregon, and works with small businesses on marketing, culture, and strategy. Thank you, Shawn.
Thanks, Lauren.
Have a great week, everybody.